Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and hello if you are new here. Today's video is all about myself and my current work in progress, my first book that I am writing. I wanted to start off by giving a little bit of background about just who I am and kind of make an introduction. This page is new, so we're getting to know each other, and I just wanted to, have a fun little introduction. First thing you should know about me, I am 22, about to be 23 next month. I'm originally from Michigan, but I currently live in Illinois. I do write as much as I can, but I have a full-time job, so I am one of those girlies who is balancing being a writer with also having a full-time job from 9 to 5 every day. I work as an admissions counselor for my alma mater. My hope is that I can get my book off the ground and maybe get a little bit of enough of a basis that I can maybe move more into the writing field once I finish this book. In college, I was a athlete, so I did pole vault all throughout college. It's actually how I met my husband. So my husband Noah and I met our freshman year of college, 2 weeks in, so we call that the freshman frenzy, and we are the only couple from that year that made it out. So we were together all 4 years of college. We got engaged right before senior year, and then we were engaged for a little over a year and got married this past September. So we did get married young. I know that's kind of like a hot topic, but it's been wonderful so far. We've been married for about 9 months, so this fall will be 1 year, and I love him. He's the best. I will pop a little picture of him in somewhere in this video. Anyway, so that's a little bit about what I did in college, where I'm from, who I am outside of this channel. When I was at school, are you ready for this? I was a family and consumer sciences major with a hospitality concentration and a double minor in business and interior design, which is a really long mouthful. Basically, I went to school wanting to go into wedding planning and kind of the events side of things in business. So that was kind of the goal with the degree track that I chose. I had a business minor as well, so kind of the entrepreneurial side of things, I wanted to open my own wedding planning company. And where that all stemmed from is that I helped out, I should say, with one of my youth group leaders' weddings when I was in high school, and my mom made a passing comment like, "Andy, you'd be so good at this," because I'm pretty organized, I'm good at talking to people and have good people skills. So anyway, and I love weddings. So I took it very literally when she said that, because at that point I wasn't super strongly feeling like I knew what I wanted to do, which is pretty normal for all 17, 18-year-olds out there who are thinking about college. And so up until that point, I had always had a passion for writing. Throughout high school, I debated doing journalism in college. I was a 4-year yearbook editor at my high school with one of my best friends. And so I always was around writing and using those writing skills. I did a ton of AP English courses throughout high school as well. And so I definitely practiced writing and honed those skills when I was in school, and I thought I wanted to do something, or potentially debated doing something with that as a career. And my story with writing goes way farther back than that, but I will get to that in a second. I had thought about doing that, but then when my mom mentioned the wedding planning thing, I thought, that's a huge industry, the events industry and weddings in particular, and I knew that I had the skills to be successful at it. And I guess I thought in my head it might be a more practical degree than doing something in creative writing or in journalism, and something kind of in that realm, or even English. Because I knew I didn't want to be a teacher, and I knew things pertaining to nonfiction. Anyway, yeah, all that good stuff. I like it, but it's not my passion. And so if I was gonna do writing, I knew I wanted it to be either some form of journalism or creative writing and fictional storytelling. I guess I just knew that that's a competitive field, and I might have a harder time. It's also something that I feel like that field, being an author or a writer, obviously there's a lot of niche pockets in it, and I feel like people tend to either love or hate or just really not care for what you do. There's 3 categories you can fall in. It's don't care, love it, or hate it. I knew that while it's a competitive field because it's so creative, it's also a field of opinion. It just felt less secure than doing something in the realm of business or being an entrepreneur that was something I knew I had the skill set for, and if I worked hard enough at it, I could probably succeed at it. Let's back up a little bit. Let's rewind. When I was in 5th grade, my teacher, Miss Alderman, if you ever find this channel, shout out to you, because when I was in 4th grade, we had a creative writing assignment given to us where we had to write a short story from the point of view of an Aztec civilian. So that was the first creative writing project I was ever given. It was the first time I ever was instructed by an adult to like daydream about that or put it on paper. And all I remember really about that is that we were given like 20 minutes to work on it. I mean, that could be so skewed, I really don't remember, but it felt like not enough time. I felt like all my other classmates wrote half a page or maybe a page, and I remember feeling like most of the people in the room weren't enjoying it, and I wrote like 2.5 pages, which for a 5th grader felt like a lot. Like I just found a whole bunch of words in myself that needed to be told. And I wrote this story about this Aztec princess, basically, whose mother had just died and she was about to become queen. And so my opening scene was like her mother's funeral, and then the story went on from there. Man, it really like turned something over in me where all of a sudden I realized, wow, I don't only love reading stories and being told stories and watching movies and stuff, but I love writing them too. And I can create these storylines in my head. And I vividly remember on that day in 5th grade, adding become an author / write a book to my bucket list. And it has been there ever since. And so if you see my bio on this channel, it is something along the lines of just trying to cross off become an author off my bucket list. That has been true for me since I was in 5th grade, and I am on a mission to complete it. And that is where you guys come in. Just this community and being able to speak it into existence, I feel like is getting me a million steps closer than I've ever been in my life. Going back to writing in 5th grade, that story really sparked something within me. And then from there on out, I felt like from that time up through college too, creative writing has always been an outlet for me. If I'm really busy, it's like my form of procrastination. I mean, I in high school had to write a few like 20-page papers that were literary reviews and analysis of certain like American classic American novels is what I meant to say. I had to write some of those really long papers, and I remember thinking like, this is painful, you know, it's 20 pages, and for a senior in high school, that's a lot. Creative writing was like my procrastination form. Writing short stories on the side, or God knows how many millions of first chapters I have in Google Docs. From the time that I first made a Gmail all the way up to now. An idea strikes, I write a first chapter or a brain dump of ideas, and then it gets left in the dusty archive of Google Docs and never to be touched again. That's been me. That's kind of my backstory with writing and how it started at a young age for me and then just carried on and up into today. Let's jump to more recently, my junior year of college. Actually, wait, farther back than that. My freshman year of college during COVID, I was a part of this writing group that was basically a group of young writers led by one mentor figure. And we did a couple different writing exercises. And one of them was that we took one story. I think my story was the starting story for it, and then basically it was like a chain writing project. The first chapter that I wrote got passed along to another writer in the group. They wrote a second chapter and got to kind of like add on to the story however they saw fit, and then it kept going in a circle until it came back to me, and then around and around. We wrote a continuous story from multiple different authors, and each author had the option to just push it, or each writer I should say, had the option to push it however they saw fit when the writing got into their hands. That was really fun, and in that time I kind of took that first chapter that I had started with and I continued to work on it by myself and just expand it into the story that I saw and imagined when I started it. That ended up being like 3 or 4 rough chapters that I had kind of formed together, and then we'll fast forward again up to junior year of college. It was my busiest semester that I'd ever had. I graduated a semester early. Even though I technically walked in graduation about a year ago, I graduated a year and a half ago. So I've been out of school for this winter will be 2 years. So anyway, it was my busiest semester. I was getting ready to finish school, and I obviously needed something to procrastinate on. So my mind found its way back to the short story that I had originally started back in that freshman year of COVID. And so I picked it back up, and I was walking through our dining hall one day and I saw a poster that was for a short story contest on campus. And anyone could enter. You didn't have to be an English major or a creative writing major or anything like that. Anybody could enter, and there was a cash prize, which I was in college and broke, and I already wanted something to procrastinate on anyway, so I saw that as a golden ticket. I went back to that short story I had started during COVID, and I started kind of polishing it up, rewriting, adding to it, until I had kind of this cohesive short story. And I did end it on a cliffhanger because at the time I was like, this is going to be a book. Like, I am going to write this out. It's going to be my first book. It will be amazing. I submitted to the competition. I was the only person outside of the English department to enter, and I came in second. So I felt pretty good about that. I didn't get a cash prize, which was a bummer, but I still felt really good about getting something out there. It was the first time in a long time, like 4 or 5 years, that I had put my work into the world outside of like showing my mom or my well, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. So that was really exciting and kind of a turning page for me into where I'm at today. After getting that short story competition in for like a year, I worked on that story. I really felt like it was going to be my first book. Like that was going to be the project I was able to flesh out and complete. I spent hours outlining this thing. I, at the time, was working as a barista, and I would either come in early for my shift or stay late. I had a notebook that I just chalked up with ideas. I wrote a timeline because it kind of was like one of those stories that has two timelines going on at once. It was about a mother and a daughter, and so there was like a past, present, or a past timeline through the mother's perspective and then a present timeline through the daughter's perspective. In my outlining process, I wrote out the two timelines and how everything got from where it was in the past to where it is in the present, as well as locations. That was the hardest part, is that this book was fictional, but it was based in the real world. So the amount of research I was having to do on the locations I wanted to base it in was so difficult. And I honestly found that it just ripped the inspiration right out of my head. I felt like the more I had to look at factual evidence to be able to create a fictional story, the more the fiction died, and I was left with no inspiration or anything to push me to keep going in the book. So anyway, I spent probably 6 months outlining this thing, including a play-by-play chapter outline. So each chapter had like a writing prompt, because at the time I felt like this is going to be the best form of writing for me, because I know that I can write with a prompt, because in the past I'd been given creative writing prompts, I've been able to just go. And so I thought if I just write prompts for myself, I'll be able to get through this thing in no time. That was a bad idea. Basically, the more I outlined the book, the more it became unclear to me what the book was even about, where it was headed, what the purpose of it was. And then eventually it just became dead. Like I couldn't connect with the characters anymore. The dialogue was strained, the setting was wrong, and everything just felt like, sometimes I think about that book and I think maybe someday I'll be able to go back to it and dust it off and clean it up and rework it and just kind of overhaul the story, because I think the bare bones of what it was meant to be is still something that could work. But I feel like if I were to shift it into a different framework and allow myself to see it differently and mold it with a more open mind, it could become so much more than what I had originally envisioned for it. Another rookie mistake, I'll say, that I made with that book was choosing too many specific ties to my own personal life. There was a lot of family names that I tied into character names and characters I wanted to be inspired by people I know in real life, and then that felt like I was crafting a box that kept me from being able to explore those characters having an actual arc that's interesting to readers. So I know that readers enjoy complex characters that are slightly dislikable. You have to kind of have discord with a character to be able to feel the friction that builds relationship and emotional tension between the audience and the reader, between the audience and the character that's telling the prose. And so I felt like I was really boxing that in to a point where I was so afraid that if any of the people who inspired these characters read this book, they would probably hate me, even if what I wrote was fictional, so that way it would be a good story arc. So that really ended up being a limiting factor, and lo and behold, I dropped that book, and it wasn't really even intentional. Like one day I was just like, I'm done with this. It was a gradual, over time, the inspiration just fell less and less and less until I was like, I am blocked. How will I ever write a book? This was my goal. This has been my goal since I was in 5th grade, and this was my first real attempt, and I couldn't even get past, I think I only got to like 5,000 or 7,000 words. That felt really disheartening and just so disappointing to me. And at this point I was wrestling with the fact that I'm finishing a degree I don't even know if I want to use. I really wish I could have gone into creative writing from the get-go and given myself a skill that would make me employable to a publishing company, something with freelance writing, editing, proofreading, anything like that. And I know those things it's an industry you can break into with experience, but it's really hard to get your foot in the door when you don't have something that says, I have 4 years of educated experience and a couple of internships that tell you should hire me. I don't have any of that. I just have a passion for writing and a long life history of being a creative writer and working on my own personal pieces. At this point, I was wrestling with the idea that I just spent a bunch of money getting a degree that, yes, it's practical, it's useful, I'll always be employable, but it's not my dream. It's not my passion. Writing is my passion. Being an author is something that I not only want to do, but I have to do in my life, and I will do it. And for a long time, it felt like something that I never knew if it was going to come or not. And then I think I mentioned this in one of my very first videos, maybe my first one. One night I was doing the dishes downstairs and I was just scrubbing away, thinking about anything random in my life. And all of a sudden it was like, I had an epiphany moment where there was a whole timeline in my head. And something I had always struggled with as a writer was only being able to see those initial ideas for a book. Like I had talked about earlier, those first chapters and all the millions of them I have in the Google Docs archive, graveyard of abandoned manuscript. I had never been able to see the story through to completion. I'd only ever been able to see the initial attention grabber or the initial conflict, never the resolution. And so when this storyline came to me in a whole timeline order of like, boom, here's your intro or attention grabber and the initial problem, here's the actual conflict of the book, and here's the way it will resolve and maybe even lead into a second book. When I got all that in one friggin' dawn of a moment, I was like, oh my gosh. So here I am standing in the sink covered in suds. I finish the dishes really quick. I run up to my room, I grab a notebook, and for the next hour and a half, I just wrote down what would then become the project I've been working on for the past 5 months. So this project or this book, it's called House of Aphtos, and I'm in love with it. I am obsessed with everything about it, and it really does feel like a story that was just, it dropped in my lap one day. And that's how I found the story that I'm writing now. I've been working on it for about 5 months. I am nearing 70,000 words, which feels like a huge accomplishment. It's really just everything I've ever felt passionate about in a story. It is not like my other book where it's based in the real world, so that has given me so much more creative free reign just to go and run with what I'm inspired by. I have always had such a love, obviously we all love Hunger Games and Divergent and those books that are a little bit like that. I'm an ACOTAR girl, I love those books, but one of the biggest series that's always been an inspiration to me since I was a little girl is Narnia. To write something that powerful has always been a dream of mine. I feel like so much of what this story is inspired by the roots of what Narnia is, and so I'm really excited to see the way that it just gets completed and fleshed out, and most importantly, what readers think of it when they get to kind of intake it for the first time. And I can't wait to hear those reviews and those feedbacks, or that feedback. So that's kind of how the book that I'm currently writing came to me. I'm super excited about it. Obviously, this channel is dedicated to the writing process of that, and then just building a community of writers who are in the same boat as me, of trying to get through this process where writing is a passion of yours. You'd love to do it full time, but you're not quite sure how. That is me. Hello, my name is Andy, and I want to be an author, but I've got a really long way to go. So if you are like that, or even if that's not your dream and you just enjoy it on the side, maybe you're just a reader, not just a reader, reading is important, but maybe you're a reader and you love intaking what other people write, and that's why you find these videos interesting. I love that. I'm also in that same boat with you. I've always been a reader as well as a writer. So no matter what brings you to this page or what makes you interested in this community of people, I'm so glad that you're here. And that brings me to present day of creating this channel. I created this channel very recently. Obviously, I don't have a lot up on my page yet, but I'm really excited about just what's continuing to grow here. I love watching other authors on AuthorTube and just getting to see their writing process, their thoughts on all of this, their struggles, their triumphs. It makes me feel motivated and just so, I don't know, acknowledged or seen in kind of what I want my life to be headed towards. And so thank you for being here and watching this video and liking and subscribing and commenting and just helping me grow this community. I love the community that other people have started to grow on this corner of YouTube, and I just want to be a part of it and kind of have my own little role in writing and storytelling and seeing where I can go with that. So that is where I'm at present day. That's a bit about who I am. That's a bit about what makes me me and what makes this book that I'm working on what it is. And I can't wait to down the road talk to you guys a little bit more about the specifics of what this book is, and eventually put out a first draft, not put out a first draft, but finish my first draft, and then get to the point where I have beta readers, and maybe even some of you will be people who volunteer for that, which would be amazing. So if you have any questions, or you enjoyed this video, or you want to share a little bit about who you are and how writing ended up in your lap, please comment down below. I would love to get to know you guys better. And so I really hope you enjoyed this video. It's been so fun getting to know you guys a little bit as I've started this channel, and I can't wait to do that more. So thank you so much for watching, and if you made it this far, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.